we don't want water to come from upgrade and come onto this surface platform. Now, ideally, this platform, this metal, this clay packed surface here would actually be elevated to the area up there, or there'd be a drain in there, or a culvert, a back cut that would send the water to a basin here and then run it under a culvert. We don't have the luxury to do that here. So ultimately what we're going to make sure we do is that there's a road from the top corner all the way down over here, so any surface water in a big rainstorm is actually going to bypass this pad that we're on right now. And then as far as where the gravel goes, I got the specifications for pole barn, and the minimal gravel pad is what they're expecting. That gravel pad here has a drain around the outside, which is about a 1 foot, 2 foot deep trench around the perimeter of where the rocks are going to be. We put our number 357 rock in, or a 2-inch rock, which is a number 3 rock as well, into that pit, and then we layer that 6 inches above that grade, actually our gravel pad. So our gravel pad will actually be a little bit higher than the overall grade. It will be compacted in till the soil doesn't take any more gravel. And then over top of that, once that happens, we put our number 57 gravel, which is a 1-inch gravel, and that's going to go on top of the pad. So what's going to happen is we're going to end up with a nice level clay surface with a little topsoil on it. There'll be a giant rectangle in it, which will be our rock pad. The rock pad will have 6 inches of rock at the top. This will fill with water. If you get a heavy rain, it's going to hold a lot of water, but because the pad is level and because those drains are around the outside, the water is going to weep down in there, and then there's a lot of surface area on the outside of that drain area, which will soak it down in the ground. Now remember, we talked before about saturation and the problems with a terrace or an earthworks when it comes to saturation. So when we get down this edge here, you see we have this berm or this bund that's going to get all tidied up, but we cannot have our gravel anywhere near this outer edge. So what we're going to do is, for every foot of height on the diagonal of that hill, we're going to go back twice as much on the ground here, and it's probably going to be at least as wide as the equipment, and then our pad is back here. So our pad's perimeter will have grass and other type of deep-rooted plants in order to stabilize the slope. So what will happen is, when this pad saturates from the rain, it'll drain straight down into the ground, and then if it does end up with a water lens, the water lens will be out there somewhere. So it'll soak down in the ground here. There's a giant clay bund that I'm standing on here that is packed down, so it should be impermeable for water. But our overall area here is packed, but it has a kind of a French drain type setup. Now, if we were doing a foundation for a house, it'd be completely different. Remember, this is a barn. This is not a house. The foundation for the house, those sumps would actually be much deeper, and then at the bottom of the sump there would be a actual corrugate wrapped in fabric in order to get that water out of here, and then that water would actually drain right below here. Now remember, this is why you hire professionals to help you with the designs, and then if you're going to put an occupancy house or a large house here, then you need to have different specifications, because a house is a lot heavier than 2 containers with a pole barn over top of it, or a pavilion like pole barn over top. So you see what we're doing here. Now this is why it's important to join a class and come on out here and see this done and walk through this kind of stuff, because when you see it, it makes more sense. Because the grade, so for example, we did a back cut in the hill here, and we brought that clay over to elevate where I'm standing right now. But we don't want water to come off the top and go over top of there. Now fortunately we've got trees on it, but if the trees ever go, then I've got to grade that out as well. Now we can grade it in 2 tiers, we can have multiple terraces. It just really depends on what's going on. But remember, if the water goes down slope, and so water will come down here and it'll come across, and then it'll go out into this open area. Now this open area is going to catch a lot of water, and we got to make sure that that water comes off out over here, okay? So the water's got to come off out over here and miss our terrace. See that corner? That's corner post is our terrace. Now you might be saying, hey Justin, you said you had a 48 foot by 40 foot gravel pad. That's what you start with as your specification. How come you have such a big terrace? It just seems awful big. Well, the terrace has to be bigger than the gravel pad in order to absorb that saturation of water that could happen in a rain event. In addition, this pad has to be level on the top, but not really. It's going to be slightly about a little 4% grade up to the bund, just like we do when we're planting. And then we want it to drain off the side. And so we'd want it to drain off the side to connect here. Now, it may not be a formal trench system or anything like that, but if we get a rain event that has, you know, saturation, we don't want that to ever go over top of the end bund. Okay, this stuff's very important to understand. A lot of folks will say, hey, I'm just going to have a contractor do it. But a contractor should be able to explain it to you and help you understand the different types of soil, the different types of grades, the different flow of water. And unfortunately, I see so many landscape contractors, so many general contractors either overbuild it or underbuild it. See that little shine in there? That's clay. Okay, water doesn't soak through that clay that easy. So again, our pad's in the middle of here, nowhere near the walls. The perimeter of the pad has a drain field. However, we still have our surface runoff come away from the bottom of the terrace. Now again, that'll get you started. You want to practice this at scale. By the way, all the science works, whether you're making a small structure or a large structure. You want to get into a class or you want to get with an Earthworks professional if you're doing this for agriculture. If you're doing it for a homestead and you're actually going to put a house here at any time in the future, then you want to go ahead and work with a general contractor. We're not going to have a permanent house structure that's like a big house. You know, you have there's compaction ratings that are necessary in order to put a house in place. Now here, are we going to have any underground power or anything like that? Well, the underground power would not be on this pad necessarily. If it comes out on the pad, it is going to be away from the outer bunds and edges. It's going to be an area that's not going to have water or surface drainage, and so it's probably going to come in down the road. Or in this particular site design, we're using a quadrilateral layout, which is a grid pattern, so the electric will actually come around the outside perimeter, and then it can come in from the perimeter. So does this make sense to you? Do you see how you can benefit from learning these sciences, understanding these concepts, and then implementing them on your small farm, homestead, or estate? Now, sometimes people don't believe that what I'm sharing with you is necessary or even and important, and then other people will go even further as if they're going to build like a 3-story building here, and then you end up spending too much or you spend too little. So the key here is that water is influenced by gravity and moves down slopes. If any water is moving on the surface of this, it is into a drainage ditch to be controlled, and otherwise the water it spreads out and soaks. Any travel areas where there's going to be vehicles, those are going to be they're going to be compacted and later rocked or otherwise not used when it's wet out. And then of course this pad, when possible, you want a roof on it. Again, I got the specifications for the pad from a barn builder that builds barndominiums, and from, you know, they build agricultural barns. The container specifications came from the company that builds container homes. We're not building a container home. These are storage containers. They're just lockable. That's the key thing. And then I got the road information from the Army Corps of Engineers, which they have a manual that does that, as well as details about how to do these terraces from the Army Corps of Engineers. Now again, when we're working on your project, when we're doing a design plan, when we're looking at usage and activity, we can talk about things like nuances. So for example, over in this corner here, there's actually 2 trails that go to the trail system. In this other corner over here, there's another trailhead. And then of course, behind me up the hill is the main access that comes in. I'm working within a grid, north-south grid, so our solar aspect is pretty good for where we're located. And within that grid, I've already started to work out where the power lines are going to go for outbuildings. So there'll be a barn here, and there'll be some like small shelter and water elsewhere. And then we probably have some tiny houses or a big tent over here for camping, and we'll see where it goes from there. But do you see what's happening here? In previous videos, this was all ditched out. That's been lifted up. We've got kind of a, you know, this is more level than it's ever been. It's got definition. It is coming together. We expect to have a couple more days of going here. Hopefully have the laser level out on Monday and Tuesday. And we'll probably be able to get you some better footage, because the gentleman who's making this happen manages farms. He has a foundation that works on kind of back to land, survival, agricultural skills. And he's implementing his skills here as we're building earthwork terraces, as you've seen in other videos. If you'd like to learn how to build these earthwork terraces, how to design them, how to run the project, how to make this happen for your small farm, homestead, or estate, then click the link below to ask your questions and to get on our announcement list. I've been out here all day. It's pretty hot. So remember this web address, www.prosperityhomestead.org. Go to the contact page and ask about Earthworks course. And we work with a number of instructors, and we have a number of locations that you can see this kind of thing happen. We work on design. We teach you how to estimate this kind of thing. Some of the auxiliary needs, because once you get on the site, there's some auxiliary needs. How to kind of get this stuff up and running. I prefer level terraces because it gives you more access to your home site. It gives you easier zone 1 maintenance. Some people want to build on a hill. Some people want to build on the top of the hill. So we'll talk a little bit about home site selection, which is important because if there is a permanent house, it would be back in this corner over here. So we're not touching the area where a permanent house would be. We're just basically putting a barn in place. But again, all of this matters. And in fact, I can help you get a multi-year design plan on paper so you can start budgeting, you can start implementing, and you can start living that dream. Food security, physical security, and freedom is what comes from having the key elements of knowledge of what we're doing here today. And I'm going to connect you with the right people so that you can learn how all this works. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org. And we're on the home stretch. I'm ready for the weekend. Okay? I've just been in an excavator for two hours, and Scott was in the skid steer for almost 4 hours. We're getting it done. We're getting it done. Look at that beauty. Look at that. Look at that. There's probably going to be other videos right here that you can click on and watch other stuff. But again, grab a sheet of paper. Let's start laying out your plan. Let's make this happen for you. Let's get your hunting lodge, your small farm. Let's get your homestead. Let's get your property improved the way you want it. Maximize the value of your land without damaging it. You might be saying, last thing, you might be saying this is damaging the land. Well, no, done right. It only needs to be done once. So doing this right, we do it one time. We get the land in good use. We get it cleaned up. We start restoring habitat, and then we've only impacted less than an acre, where the rest of the land is gonna work on the agricultural side. Anyway, I'm Justin Hitt. Thank you for being a part of Prosperity Homestead. If you're a newsletter subscriber or coaching member, be sure get on the next group coaching call. We'll talk about this a little bit more. I'll see you in the next one.